Creating the Perfect Company from the organizational experts, Multiview Incorporated. This content is based on MBI's work with over 1,300 organizations, extracting 989 data elements with 922 cross-calculations over 27 years on a monthly basis, and then systematizing the operational success patterns of the 90th percentile. Our intent is to get beyond the brag and the boast, and simply share insights from our experience without manipulation or coercion to sell anything, except helpful ideas. These messages range from intimate recordings from the Awakened Forest to concerts, national conferences, and broadcasts.
Welcome again to Creating the Perfect Company, and this is the fourth installment of the seldom spoken aspects of leadership. It was a national broadcast. There's hundreds of leaders in on it. It really had tremendous impact, and I remember the feedback was tremendous. And of course, it was done from our broadcasting facility at our headquarters in Hendersonville. And without further ado, here is the fourth and final installment of this series.
Standardization is not something that's taught on a regular basis in most organizations. So let's get clear about what that is. So leadership, systems, processes, and standardization. Just so we have a foundational base of knowledge which to operate. Now, one of the things we have developed at Multiview that is actually the first thing when we're certifying leaders is we have a standardization leadership. And because that is really the foundation of everything, is understanding this. And suddenly the light bulb goes up. Oh, I understand why we're doing perfect visits. Oh, I understand why we're doing perfect phones. I understand dressing to the standards or whatever. So again, great foundational knowledge. Most of your solutions to your frustrations and problems are going to lie in your systems and processes. Okay, standardization just makes work easier and reduces stress. No company has ever achieved and maintained world-class quality and performance without standardization. I'm just putting out some realities, just like a 2x4 right now. No company has ever achieved and maintained world-class quality and performance without standardization. What do intelligent leaders focus on? Systems and processes. So we're focusing less on people and more on processes. So what we're saying is most organizations are fixated or hypnotized that if I get better people, I'm going to have a better organization. There's certainly some truth to that, but more of your success is going to lie in the way that you're organized, your systems and processes, rather than the people solution. So I'm saying to focus more on the process or system solution rather than the people solution. And that's a big paradigm shift for a lot of people. Because in our world, people want to do a good job normally, but they are failed by the systems and processes provided by the organization. Now, another thing about standardization and processes, superior processes, those processes used by the 90th percentile, like MBI shares or tries to share, these processes tend to de-evolve over time as less enlightened or average people come or pass through the organization. And this happens over and over and explains why nobody can stay at the top forever. Nancy is also, I mean, all the MBI staff, we see where we'll take someone from, let's say, a 12% loss to a 20%, margin. That's a 30-some% movement. Yay, we throw a party, we celebrate it. And then it doesn't take that much time before suddenly, it's 18, it's 16. It starts to de-evolve because, there's probably some turn of people over time. People retire or whatever. Average people come in and say, what do you mean we're not doing budgets? What's this model thing? We've got to go back to budgets because everybody does budgets. Oh, we can't do a compensation system like that. Oh, no. And suddenly the things that got you there are dismantled over time. Why? All things almost in this world need maintenance. From relationships to your body, your human organism, to organizations. And that's why a lot of times we put people on what we call maintenance, or we have this new thing that's called objective monitoring, that we get someone there and we basically hold the organization accountable and give them an objective view constantly of where they're at. And that will keep an organization straight and performing at that very, very ultra high level. But without that, it's hard to do. The thing is here, nature does not tolerate neglect or misuse. Nature will not allow things to be mismanaged for long. So anything that's not maintained, like that garden, weeds are going to come. Okay, so understanding the value of standardization. Here we go. This is what it looks like, folks. Limited colors. When you see the people, you know where they're from. And everybody feels better when they're served by people in a great look. Right? Well, I even have my MBI thing. Don't think I don't have it on here. Okay, and this is one of the hospice that I own. Again, won many, many awards for quality and satisfaction and all that, but this shows you the extent of our standardization. So the steps for standardization. Now I'm going to go through this material fairly fast because we got other things, and again, to move on to, and we've got a lot of material on this. You define the standards, which a lot of organizations, they don't have. I say, give me your standards. And what? Okay. Written documentation to commonize really our work processes and all this. This would have written sequences, flow charts. This is a visual or tangible thing that creates belief. But you can't rely on an oral narrative. So you also want to enable independent study. So written documentation to commonize the topics. 3, the creation of materials for System 7 or in Six Sigma intensive training. This would include everything you need to support your System 7, PowerPoints, flashcards, tests, because you have to measure. All of your people development is a joke if you don't use written tests and, to the extent that you can, have your synthetic labs to create the habits and the confidence through successful repetition to create those defaults in people. You're a joke if you don't do this. And I know that's being harsh, but that's kind of my job. If we're not doing that, I'm basically saying if we're going to have higher quality, it's not going to come out of thin air. It's going to become from pressing your people, putting them in stress conditions, making certain they can do the job, making it binary. Either they can do the job or not. That's why all testing is done to 100%. Okay, so we create everything for our intensive training, our System 7. Then we do the intensive training, usually in groups of 4 to 6 is what we found to be a great way to do it. System 7, which we've already went through. And then we have this position observation. This happens in the labs first. We watch them. And then this would happen in our ride-alongs as we're certifying. But we're putting our eyeballs on the different folks that went through our training systems. And this is done on a regular basis. And then, of course, analysis of our measurements, our complaints, or what we'll call gifts. And then we do this, of course, frequently or regularly to see where we're going or trending. What are the requirements for standardization? 5 things. We adopt a set of best known practices. This is why you use multi-view, or you get it from wherever you can, because we don't have the whole enchilada. 2, we document them in operational terms through our manuals. 3, establish clear performance expectations. Again, the standards. 4, design into position a state of self-control, which we've talked about, so that you don't have to lord over people. 5, train everyone until they can do 100% of the standards, 100% of the time on a day-to-day basis, and at 100% census volume or sales or whatever you want to call it. There you go. What are the characteristics of every standard that you create? First, they are clear. Everybody knows them. 2, they are impressive. Wow, these are cool. So all phone calls answered within 3 rings by a real person. We don't get an automated machine. You go how many thousands of visits without a single screw? Yes. Wow, impressive. 3, they are sustainable. They're based on the realities of human beings. All work done in an 8-hour day. Overtime is evil. We are not here to burn you out and grind you down to a nub. Sustainable. When making standards, I will take sustainable, stuff that's normally 200 or 300% higher than the median in that business sector, and put that there. But optimal is probably not where you want to go, because optimal tends to break. What's sustainable? What's not going to completely fry people? I'll take that any day of the week. Okay, achieving or designing a position state of self-control. Number 1, know what you are supposed to do and why you are doing it to create client delight, measurements, all this. All this comes from our intensive training, our System 7. What are we doing? Why am I doing it? And you have to give the why. The why is the philosophical explanation behind everything you're doing, because otherwise you de-evolve into the lowest level of teaching, saying, do this, do this, do this. And the ignorant person will go, well, let's get rid of this. I don't see why we're doing this. And you wonder why you lose 50% of the value of something, because you omitted something, because you didn't explain why. 2, know if you're doing it to standard, with emphasis on visual controls, or IRMs, or what we call image recall mechanisms. Visual controls are things you can look at. They can look at lists. They're things that you surround yourself in the work environment to increase predictability. And this is why you don't want to keep your list of your daily to-do on your phone if you're trying to focus on important work to increase quality or accomplish something, because this thing, again, is the antithesis of focus, because of the texts, the pop-ups, the emails, the phone calls that are coming your way, the news flashes, and we wonder why we don't complete whatever, rather than going off in the woods with no distractions into a lonely hermitage cabin and saying, I'm going to figure out how to do this. I'm going to solve this problem. So it comes down to focus. But these visual controls help us in a chaotic, world, where often you're fighting against all kinds, the static of personalities and distractions. And we use these all over the place. If you're a machine operator, you may have, tendency to fall asleep or whatever. Hey, how do we do this? If we're working a synthetic visit lab in a healthcare context, we place things in the environment to cue our behaviors. 3, have the ability and authority to regulate for long-term client delight. And what this means is that everybody knows the standards and that they can basically stop the production line if the standards are not being done. I'll use a fast food, Baldrige-winning organization, Pal's Sudden Service. And again, let's say you're the wrapper guy, that's your position, and the burger comes your way and it's supposed to have pickles on it, and the pickles are supposed to be 3 specifically just like this. But pickle guy sends it to you and there's only 2. Well, you just wrap it up and send it on? No, you were taught self-control, self-discipline. You pass it back to pickle guy and say, pickle guy, get your act together. Nothing's getting by me. Tell this to the standards of this organization. So pickle guy adds the other pickle. Now you can wrap it. And you wonder how they can go thousands of transactions, just way higher than any fast food enterprise, McDonald's, any of these things. And it's like, wow. Such predictability, which is always what you're selling with a service, whether product or service or whatever, predictability. Visual controls. But I go to organizations, this isn't done regularly and whatever. And I go, okay, where's your visual controls? What's a visual control? IRM. Anyway. And then 4, refresh, at least annually, the purpose of the position state of self-regulation, what it means. 3 things you need to do to actually implement standardization. Clearly define each standard. We teach each standard by System 7, so we eliminate all knowledge deficits. 3, we attach uniform accountability to each standard. Uniform accountability. This is how you actually make it alive. This means if you don't do a standard, in every site or location, this is what happens. Here is the consequence of that. Therefore, we like to grow our own leaders in the world-class organization. That is, unless you need a change agent, and I understand that. But much, much preferable to get all your leaders from inside, because if you hire Billy Bob from a competitor or from another organization because he was, quote, a great leader, and you don't have your own leadership development, Billy Bob's going to proceed to break every standard you have probably, bust your system, as everybody tries to be a hero in the Billy Bob system, because you don't have a system. It's not uniform. And Billy Bob's innocent, by the way. He's just doing what Billy Bob does, just like T-Rex, the big dinosaur. It's designed to eat stuff and destroy stuff, and that's its job. There's nothing wrong with T-Rex, and Billy Bob, there's nothing wrong with Billy Bob either. He's just doing what Billy Bob does. And compensation is by far the easiest and most effective way to do accountability. Because we have accepted the fact that leaders and managers will not hold people accountable, at least with the intensity, and they will normally delay addressing issues, which further damages the company. It's not done immediately. Where if we sensitize our EMR, our financial systems, to that extent, those can be automated. And the accountability can be done through that as soon as it happens. It shows up in the next paycheck. But immediately they get a non-wounding email to the employee, manager copied, so the manager doesn't have to break the bad news. Oh, you got the email. Let me help you. Transforming and giving great ease and making the job of the leader much easier rather than, boy, I got to have the talk with her today. This is going to be a bad day. This is going to be rough, boom. The system does it for you. The manager, though, still has to uphold the accountability for behavioral issues, the bad attitude, the late to meeting, those types of things. Boom. Okay. Just a few more areas. And you're going, thank God. Like I say, this is almost an undefinable topic, but I know it's worth doing. Professional judgment. A good leader has a sense of fair play and equity and knows that there's two sides to every story. And there's usually the truth somewhere in the middle. That's a good leader. The sense of fair play and equity, because you're going to have to arbitrate things. And this all comes down to what I'll call judgment or professional judgment. So let's talk about the importance of professional judgment. And I'll use this illustration, and if you can see this slide, those just listening through audio won't see it, but we see United Airlines here, and we see the mouth guard. And that represents what? The 2017 incident where there was a flight 3411, going back to Chicago, and they had overbooked it, and they told this doc that was going back, hey, you've got to surrender your seat. And he said, no, I got patients I need to see. You're not taking my seat. And so there's all this scuffle, security came on. The guy lost a few teeth in the incident. It was nasty, hit the news. They lost millions of dollars in the process. Let's analyze this situation because it's such a good illustration of professional judgment. Or when really not, to have good judgment. Okay, we're the people working that gate, that United gate, trying to do the policy and standards of United. Yes, they oversold it, which they do routinely. And this is their way of extracting the patient off, the unfortunate customer. Okay, so they were trying to do their job. What about the security people? Were they trying to do their job? Of course. What happened? Well, really, probably someone at that working that gate should have said, this is not going to work out well. Okay, and then quick thinking. Hey, how much money has everybody got here? Okay, can we get $500 here? Hey, I got $500 cash here for anyone here who wants to give up their seat. Okay, this is not the standards of the organization. But it would have avoided that situation if someone would have taken them out. And we'll get you a free flight out in the next deal, whatever. Well, in a case where you go off of standards, because some people, standards, hey, they're black and white. Well, they are black and white, except when it's going to work out bad. So at that point, the person's obligation is to own the deviation from the standards, but then say, this is what I did and why I did it. And then the smart executive goes, whoo, good job. There's probably a promotable person there because of their quick thinking. So there's time to do the standards and when not to, but professional judgment kicks in. So leaders have to have great judgment. In fact, leaders need to have better judgment than those that they lead. But there are also times when the right thing to do is to not do the standard, but then own it when it's deviated from and explain why. When is your professional judgment bad? Okay, avoid making decisions, especially big decisions, when you're tired or in a bad state of mind or in a low energy state. Do not decide to get the divorce just after a really bad day or whatever. Wait till you can think about it or whatever. That's an example of a big thing. Or, to quit your job or whatever. But when you're in low energy, say again, your judgment is bad and you make bad decisions. Okay, that's about all I want to say about professional judgment. Leadership, a few words on communications. Leaders always have to be evolving really their communication skills. And I'm not talking about just your oral. I'm talking about your public speaking, your body language, written. Again, your intelligence is being developed by this as you learn how to language different things to different types of audiences, different consciousnesses and intelligence. Communication. So you work on this. Because we've got to get our ideas out of here, our own head, and into those that we lead. And then, of course, our organizational skills and our ability to prioritize. Again, this is really our planning. Again, what is the highest value we can do for today versus lower value things? Of those things, sometimes the things that are what I'll call quick kills are things that you can cross off your list just because they're rapid, which gives you that great feeling, rather than having something that's so big in front that you never get to some of the other things because the one thing is consuming all your energy. Okay, but lack of communication breeds vain imaginations or creates a void that your employees or the people you lead will fill if you don't. This is why if you don't, again, if you allow the subperformer to survive because they're fulfilling a particular function that's needed, or it would do harm to the company to get rid of them, you explain to your team why you're tolerating that substandard. So you don't have the vain imaginations, well, geez, so-and-so's really a loser now, and I don't know what happened to our standards, and so it seems like we're de-evolving here. I hear she's looking for another job. I don't know, she seems to be distracted. Maybe they're getting a divorce. The gossip thing happens. So communication and regular communication, important. The other thing about communication, yes, the leader is a salesperson, constantly selling ideas, practices, mindsets, policy. And if no one's buying, you have an issue with your communication. Unless whatever you're selling is crap. So, and to me, this is also could go in the category of conditions for success. But our communications, delightful, satisfying cooperation communication, to eliminate these voids, follow through, say what you mean what you say, record it. Anyway, that's really probably enough on that. But regular, documented, also being succinct. To me, this whole program's probably going on a little bit longer than I'd like, but I want to get it out there, but brevity is golden. Respond, just good old customer service internally. If an employee asks for something, get back with them. Don't shove it off. That's a huge dissatisfier. As well as proactive status updates. Where are we on this project? If you put out one thing, hey, we're going to do this, and then people never hear about it again, well, that's an aspect of your follow-through communication and stuff. And, well, it's just the, program or flavor of the day, and just stick around long enough and it'll be gone. And we'll be on to the next one. Meetings and leadership. Most organizations have what we call meeting hell, and is a dissatisfier. Meetings are essentially a group or organization. Anyway, to me that's pretty long-winded. I got to keep going. Anyway, it's a way. Meetings are normally a waste and a source of a lot of frustration in a lot of organizations because you can just feel your life being fitted away, rehashing the same issues and frustrations over and over again with nothing really being accomplished except for going to meet about the problem again. When we're introducing the idea of perfect visits with perfect documentation, we resist meetings because we'll have a bunch of people that are not experienced in doing this, and they'll bring all these ideas, and there'll be so many concessions and appeasements made that you end up with this neutered thing, and all the value has been taken out from these. So we resist this and say, hey, just take what we're giving you right now based on years and years and years of development, write it for a while, and then come together after you gain some experience. Because right now you're going to probably innocently and ignorantly take out the high value nutrients from the Wonder Bread. So there are definitions. A committee. A noun, where people get together as a group and spend enormous amounts of time making concessions, showing how clever they are, neutering out important nutrients, devastating value, and ending up with a mediocre result. That's what most committees do. And normally, one of the biggest factors is they lack accountability because it's really hard to fire the committee. Government uses committees all the time. I mean, how's that working again? No, one person owns the topic. Their head rolls if this thing doesn't work. They have to be, and obviously if they're smart, they bring people together because they need others to make it happen, right? But somebody's got to be accountable. So meeting points, designate a leader to run the leader. A person that understands standardization. So that's a prerequisite. You have your clear late jar, that if someone's even 1 minute late, they put the $5 or $10 in because time is life and we want people to be there. And it's just absolutely disrespectful to be late to meetings. That's why the word respect is on the clear glass jar. Normally no cell phones as they intrude on focus and special time. We start with the 3 questions to center and endear people to basically the core of the mission. And we have focus with some type of written document, whatever, then process, what are our goals, what are we working on? What are those 3 questions? And I'm not going to go through these in any detail, there's enough on those. The first question, we start the meeting at, first of all, an odd time, just like we started today at what? 1:01. Which emphasizes time, and we use that all over, even for scheduling external meetings. Hey, Doc, when can we meet? Well, I can do 10:15. Well, I can't do that. Can we do 10:14? Or I can even fit you in at 10:13. And of course, the doc laughs. And what is with that? Well, I'm so glad you asked, Dr. Smith. We respect time so much, and if we're late at meetings, we're late at visits probably, or whatever everything is designed for a marketing result, of course. Okay, so all our teams together, the first question is, what are you? And they all say a feeling, and then we make a call up. And Jim, what is meant by, or what's behind that? What's that mean?
It's just an acknowledgement that feelings are important and they're the basis of all memory and recall.
Perfect. Okay. Second question. What do you see yourself as? Nancy?
A teacher.
Well, what's with that?
I am a teacher because I'm a replicator. And also taking it a layer deeper, the Medicare benefit was never intended for us to provide the care. We are there to teach the caregiver what they need to know so that they can take care of their loved one in our absence.
But there we go. So just think about this. Every meeting, what are you? A feeling. We're learning about how to invoke feelings, endear ourselves with feelings, what to see ourselves out. So we got the group response. And then what day is it? The group response is? And what's with that, Bernie?
Just taking accountability that whatever happens throughout the day, I don't have to react to what happens because I'm accountable for how I feel.
Okay, there we go. So accountability is the precise language we're looking for. I'm going to own my life. I'm not going to be a victim. And there we go. And right there, life gets better, culture gets better, happiness goes up through the habitual habit of having a standardized way of running your means, of kicking them off, and getting those core things that you want in everybody. And those 3 questions would be great for any organization. And they'll change people's lives. Okay, leadership. And it's linked to personal growth. Again, you have an obligation to grow and to be learning if you're a leader. Growth comes from facing or overcoming fears, resistance, struggle. Again, if we're going to build a muscle, we've got to exercise it. Leadership is also a high spiritual path. So there's all kinds of things in the spiritual domain that we can learn to evolve our leadership. With that said, in our leadership journey, we should expect periods of epic and dry. Mother Teresa used to talk about this. There are times when you don't think much is happening. You know, you're in the desert. But believe me, something's happening. And then you have these times where you break through, you get to the oasis, the epic periods, and you go, man, I've made such big progress or distance. Personal growth. So many people, or so many of our problems come from trying to fix people. This is an unrealistic idea or belief that leads to really crushed expectations. So that's another growth thing for a human being. You're not going to fix everybody. Again, conditions for success. Consciousness. As we evolve ourselves, we're evolving our consciousness, or I'll say working on our own BS. You know, expanding our views of the world and all that. And I will say this, the leadership, there's no magic wand or quick magic water we can put on anybody to accelerate this. The pace of the development I find with leadership is almost an agricultural pace rather than a high-tech instant thing. It happens just when it happens. And so it's just not an instant gratification. And it's an unending process. Okay, the leader willfully puts the people they lead in uncomfortable situations and presses them as he or she knows that it is their best opportunity for growth. This is why when I press on people to accomplish things, I do not feel bad about it. You know, you kind of have to evolve your consciousness or even your leadership style where you're kind of the good guru, giving people these almost impossible tasks sometimes. And, but you know kind of what you're up to, that you're pressing them to go beyond their normal comfort zones. And that in doing that, they're going to have a better life. And they're going to realize how strong they are. So we have to be willing to press and sometimes stress your people if you're going to grow them. And along this line, there is a surprising link between happiness, pain, and accountability, and attitude. Let's say that a little bit different here. There's a link between pain and happiness. And pain, you could say, is linked to accountability, right? Holding people accountable. But a lot of people think that giving people things makes them happy. And these are kind of one-sided people. And One illustration that helps demonstrate this is, there's this kid in, I think, the movie Captain Courageous. Again, where the millionaire's boy is swept overboard and he ends up being picked up by a fishing boat, which isn't going to go back to, land for months. And he says, oh, my dad could buy this boat and I demand that you take me there. He's just a spoiled brat because he's been given everything his whole life and he's miserable. And they say, if you don't work, you don't eat around here, boy. If you don't help out, you don't, whatever. So he starves, he has some pain. Then finally, it's like, I'm really hungry. I'll start working in the kitchen a little bit. Well, suddenly this kid starts to develop like relationships and the crew starts to accept him because he's baiting hooks and cleaning and learning how to work the boat and all this. And then they get back to their home port and the kid doesn't want to leave. And they say, well, here's your, they're dishing out the wages like they do on fishing boats. I worked on a fishing boat for 10 years, so I know how that works. Here's your check, boy. And they gave him, like $8 for the small amount of money. And that $8 was worth everything. And he says, no, I don't want to go home. This is why. He paid a price and has this feeling of accomplishment, of progress, of growth. So when you go too easy on people and have this one-sided view that I need to give people, I need to soften the standards, I need to be squishy or whatever, you are robbing them of growth opportunities, is what I'm saying. Better to push your people, know what you're doing, and after a while they get it. The growth normally, again, there's a price. Leadership. Ways you can better experience leadership. And these are things that have helped me. See each person you lead as a lesson for your benefit. To me, this goes a long way to easing the emotional burden of leadership, especially in hard times. And it also helps you remain cool in tough situations. Every human being is almost like a deck of cards. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. So I look at everybody as a lesson. And I'll just say this, situations where I've had a painful situation, I actually have a file folder that, this was the Billy Bob lesson that I can refer back to. Oh yeah, I learned that. That way I don't hopefully step in the same hole again. Another helpful thing to do is to see what you're doing as the garden, as I have described, that you're cultivating, and that you're doing your best, you're putting your best inputs, creating the conditions for success, but then where you're trusting God or divinity for the result or outcome. Another helpful thing is to see work or the work of the organization as a ministry or a monastery or a mission. Really cultivating this idea of meaning and purpose. And the one thing that almost all businesses and enterprises can do is at least have the meaning and purpose of serving other human beings with ultra high standards and extraordinary customer service. Goodness. That is sufficient to carry most anybody, whether you're making shoes or working convenience stores or C stores, as we call them, or we're working in healthcare. Okay, another helpful thing. Can you be okay with muddling through life or muddling through your leadership journey rather than just thinking we have to have it all together all the time? Again, plan, but know that your plan is always going to have to interface with all the events and circumstances of life as they come at us, all these variables. The types of leadership. There's project leadership, that is specific skill set. It could be a programming or new service line or whatever. People leadership is normally what we think about. I'm leading a department or division or whatever. There's informal leadership, and this is basically usually your very productive employees that basically lead by example, have voices with some strength, that's respected. And even measurement leadership, that we can be a leader in our industries just because we are measuring different things and we have great metrics. There can be office leadership. Bernie's a great example of that when Bernie comes in the office, it gets better. Jim, you're another example of that. People love it when you come in the office because of your great disposition and upbeatness and all that. Crisis leadership. This is where the external world summons our powers. And as we rise to the occasion and someone can see how to get out of this pickle or jam that we've got into. Financial leadership. The CFO has to have this because most people are not thinking about the numbers or the financial ramifications in great detail. And this person is focused on that and can give that guidance, especially to other leaders of how to manage their departments, how to do this, how it equates to the bottom line and the sustaining of that organization. There could be standards leadership where you actually set the standards within a field of endeavor or an industry, making up new standards for the huddled masses or the herd or 50th percentile to follow. Okay, just a few slides left. Realities. Leadership realities. In my opinion, a leader needs to get completely pragmatic and real. And again, nature gives us most of the cues of how, again, life actually works on this planet. It gets way beyond, to me, all these theories of how to run things. And it gets us past a lot of what I'll call philosophical BS. Reality. To grow your people, they must overcome resistance, the negative. And nature teaches us that strength comes from struggle. Reality. The negative registers at approximately 200% over the positive. We really don't know quite what that number is, but we just know that when we touch the hot stove, our likelihood of touching that hot stove again is not very high because of the high value of pain. Whereas we do something that succeeds, and suddenly we stop doing that, or we'll do it for a while, but then after a while it's like, this is boring. Let's do something else, and the best practice goes away. So again, a good leader uses both sides of the yin and yang, the light side and the dark side. Leaders, the study of compensation is really the study of motivation. Because all of life is some form of compensation. It's just not financial compensation. It's the experience of life is compensation. There's some type of payoff for our behaviors. Reality. An organization is a system of incentives. And if we provide the right incentive, we will get our result. It also could be a disincentive. Boy, I think that's about it. We are about at the end. Leadership. I hope this all was helpful. And it went a little longer than I thought. I apologize for that. So that's about where I want to wrap this up. Again, it's not a topic I love to teach because it seems squishy and it's almost undescribable. But it's one that it does need to be addressed. Okay, then there we go. Thank you for your time, everybody, and have the best day of your life.
We hope you are having the best day of your life. If you need something further, just visit one of the Multiview Incorporated websites or contact us through social media. Smoke signals, carrier pigeons, telepathy have not proven reliable. All calls are answered within 3 rings by a competent, real person. Thank you for listening.